What's going on, everyone? My name is Everett DeLorme from Toronto, Canada. That's Rob St. Clair from Chicago, USA. And this is the official Volleyball World 2024 Paris Olympics men's indoor volleyball preview. We can't wait for the biggest event on the volleyball calendar, and we're going to get you set up for 2 fantastic weeks of indoor volleyball.
Yes, we are. Hopefully this video right here will give you just about everything you need to know for first-time volleyball fans, for long-time volleyball fans. We're going to get into how the tournament has changed, how it works, because it is different this time around. We're going to talk about every pool. We're going to talk about every team. And at the very end, Everett and I are going to pick our medalists. So let's jump into it, Everett, by explaining what is different about the Olympic indoor volleyball tournament this time around in Paris.
As per usual, the Olympic tournament features 12 teams, but this time around, teams will be drawn into 3 different pools of 4 instead of 2 different pools of 6. Teams will be playing 3 pool play matches instead of the old 5, making every single match, set, and point even more important. The top 2 teams from every pool, along with the 2 best third-place teams, will be seeded in through 1 through 8 and placed into a single elimination bracket. Rosters are made up with 12 players with a 13th player added as an alternate player, which is different from the 14-man roster that most teams are used to at all international events.
The 2024 men's Olympic volleyball tournament kicks off on Saturday, the 27th of July, one day after Olympics opening ceremonies, and teams will play 3 pool play matches in a span of either 7 or 8 days. This is definitely different from Olympics past. Also, from a viewership perspective, there will only be 4 volleyball matches taking place each day as opposed to 6 as it was previously. All 4 men's quarterfinals will be taking place on Monday, the 5th of August. Both semifinals on Wednesday, the 7th of August. The bronze medal match will be Friday, the 9th of August, and the gold medal match Saturday, the 10th of August. 2 weeks of the most intense volleyball of an entire 4-year cycle. Check your local and your country's individual Olympics rights holders for broadcasting information. Unfortunately, this event will not be shown on Volleyball World TV.
In addition to a shortened 3-year Olympic cycle, there was a different qualification process for the 2024 Paris Olympics. 6 teams joined the host France via the Olympic qualifying tournament ran by Volleyball World in the fall, and 5 other teams qualified directly through the world rankings after the 2024 VNL. This leads to what we think is the deepest and best pool ever in the Olympics for men's volleyball.
Yeah, it very well might be. This field is battle tested through a very rigorous qualification process and a very different quad for sure. But I agree with you that I think this might produce the greatest top to bottom field in Olympic men's volleyball history. They were drawn into pools just a couple weeks ago, and here are the teams. Pool A, the hosts France, Slovenia, Canada, and Serbia. Pool B features Poland, Italy, Brazil, and Egypt. And Pool C, Japan, the United States, Argentina, and Germany. We're going to go pool by pool, team by team. Let's start off with Pool A.
In Pool A, we have the hosts and defending champs, France, who will be heavily favored to take Pool A at home. But after them, all 3 teams will be competing for that second spot. At the top of that list is Slovenia, who dominated the preliminary stage of the 2024 VNL, which helped them qualify for their first ever Olympics via the world rankings.
And the 3 seed in this pool is Everett's beloved Canada and their 3rd Olympics in a row. And bringing up the rear in this pool, at least in terms of seeding, is Serbia, who got back into the Olympic field for the first time since 2012 after winning a race in terms of world rankings through this year's VNL preliminary round. They beat out Cuba at the very, very end to get back into the Olympic field. Everett, take it away to give us the info on the reigning champions from France.
Allez les Bleus! The defending Olympic champs, France, are currently ranked 4th in the world, but don't let that fool you because they have been on a heater in the summer of 2024 after winning the 2024 VNL. They had a bit of a mediocre preliminary round with some ups and some downs, but once they hit the playoffs, it was all business. They took down Italy and Poland along on their way to a finals where they destroyed Japan, and they're looking very, very good, especially by winning that tournament without the 2021 Tokyo MVP in Irvin Engapeth and winning their starting blockers in Bartolomé Cheniniese. Les Bleus are one of the deepest teams in world volleyball. When you're looking at guys like Tilly, Luati, and Clevno on the left side along Engapeth, that is one of the deepest outside cores we see, while Jean Patry and Théophore are both scoring machines. They've got one of the best liberos in the world in Jania Grebenikov, and down the middle, they're super, super solid with Chen Inyezi and Le Goff. Now, the big question about this French team isn't if they have the talent or the ability or the athleticism or the depth, but can they handle the distractions and the pressures of playing for Olympic gold at home? We know this team loves the spotlight, but maybe they love it a little too much. Are they going to be able to dial in, and can Andrea Gianni get his team focused and together for one of their last runs of this team? This team has been together for a long time. It's one of the most veteran teams in the tournament, and they're returning the majority of their squad from the 2021 Olympics. Can this team's chemistry lead them on to the first repeat winners since the U.S. did it in 84 and 88? Guess we'll have to see.
The number 2 seed in Pool A is Slovenia, who, like we mentioned, is qualified for their first ever Olympic Games in men's volleyball, currently ranked 5th in the world. They've never played the Olympics before, like we said, so we don't have any Olympic history for them. They did get here through the world ranking process. They've had just a phenomenal ascension in the last decade or so with approximately the same group of players who it's really just an important honor for them to be able to represent their country at the Olympics. They kind of dominated the preliminary round of this year's Volleyball Nations League, 11-1, but weren't able to medal. Lost to Japan in the semifinals, lost to Poland for the bronze medal. This team's identity is pretty established. They've got a very clear starting 7. They've got only a couple guys they're likely to use off the bench. Tonček Stern led the VNL in this preliminary round this year in scoring. He will be a big factor for them at the opposite position. Gregor Ropret will be the setter. Rok Mozic is a great young superstar, but he's likely to come off the bench. He'll give way to Tine Urnaut and Klemen Chebul on the outsides. Yanni Kovacic is super underrated. The Slovenian team is very good. I think their floor is pretty high. The Olympics, though, is kind of a different animal. The value of Olympic experience is really important and can't be overstated. And I'm curious to see how Slovenia handles their first Olympics ever. They've had a lot of success, particularly in the European Championship, where they've medaled, I think, 4 out of the last 5 times in that tournament. The Olympics is different, and they've only got 3 matches guaranteed to kind of get their feet underneath them and get ready to play good volleyball against great competition. That top end sparkle that they sometimes have at Euros, for example, can they capture that in Olympic context? We'll see. I like Slovenia at least to get to the quarterfinal, but once they get there, I'm not sure they have enough variety and enough top end explosiveness to really scare teams in an Olympic elimination format, but we will see.
Next up, my home and native land, Canada. The Maple Volleys are off to their 3rd straight Olympic Games, which is, if you ask me, amazing. And if you would have asked me a year ago if this team was ready to go to the Olympics, I wouldn't have said no. Right after a collective 5-19 in the 2022 and 2023 VNL and a terrible World Championships in 2022 where they couldn't even make it out of pool, the Maple Volleys had an absolute glow up at the 2023 Olympic qualifying tournament where they're able to grab the 2nd spot from in Pool C. Now, this team went through one of their best VNLs ever in 2024, going a collective 8-4. While also going 4-0 in week 3 to qualify for their first ever finals. They're led by 2 of the best outsides in the world in Stephen Marr and Eric Lepke, who have proven themselves to be one of the top pairings in that position in the world. And have a supporting cast of guys like Arthur Schwartz and Luke Herr, their setter. They've also got some new young guns coming onto this team in the form of Finn McCarthy and Justin Louis. McCarthy was one of the biggest surprises this year in the VNL, really jumped onto the scene as a dominant minnow who can get it done offensively at the block and from the baseline. And Justin Louis, a Stanford alum, is really establishing himself as one of the most solid liberos in the game right now. I think personally that Canada has to be one of the dark horses. They really turned things on and have improved under head coach Tuomas Semivuo, who, by the way, brought Russia to a silver medal back in 2021. So this team has the pedigree. The big question for them will be, can they handle that first contact? When they serve well and pass well, they're one of the most dangerous teams in the world. But they have been known to have those mental lapses on serve receive that'll lead to some quick losses for the Maple Volleys. Ranked 9th in the world right now is great for Team Canada, but they're definitely going to be wanting more and really trying to get over that quarterfinal hump, which is where they lost both in Tokyo and in Rio.
Last but not least, in Pool A, we have the men of Serbia, who have continued to be a pretty dominant volleyball country since splitting away from Yugoslavia, at least at the Olympic level. This is, though, their first Olympic berth since 2012. They missed out in 2016 and 21. Particularly in 2016, they were still very much a world-class team, but the system at the time kind of kept them out of it. It is good to see Serbia back at this level. They used this VNL really as just the process to chase down that last spot in this tournament and just barely beat out Cuba in the world ranking race to get back to the Olympics for the first time since 2012, like I mentioned. This team is not the world-class perennial contender that they used to be, but they are definitely dangerous enough to be relevant in this pool, particularly their volatility from the service line. I mean, Everett and I were in Ottawa for Volleyball Nations League this year when kind of out of nowhere, Pavle Peric, one of their outside hitters, probably their fourth outside hitter, went on a ridiculous service run of 3 aces in a row to steal a set and beat the Netherlands 3-0 in a match. And that sort of thing can happen with Serbia. It's all led by Dražen Luberic, who wear number 16. He is their big banger on the right side. He is one of the top scorers of VNL this year. And Serbia very much got back to the Olympics on his right shoulder. Serbia is a classic team, very strong down the middle as well. The legendary Marko Podraščanin, one of the few guys on the Serbian team with Olympic experience. He gets to give it one last run with this team. Super solid down the middle, pretty big, pretty physical across the board, especially from the service line. What Serbia, I'm not convinced has at the Olympic level is ball control, is overall skill, and like the mental fortitude to stay in it and be engaged and consistent for the entirety of a match or the entirety of a tournament. When they get hot, they are very, very scary. They can beat really good teams just with the volatility of their serving, but the nature of the way that skill kind of works, especially as aggressively as Serbia goes after it, is if they have a bad day from the service line, they're going to really struggle to beat a lot of teams. Also, the form of Uroš Kovačević, one of their presumptive starting outside hitters, is kind of in question after we didn't see him very much throughout the Volleyball Nations League, where Serbia needed to play as well as they could in order to qualify. So this Serbian team is super good. It's going to be a difficult out as far as 4 seeds are concerned. But I think the game plan to beating them is relatively well known, especially for the other teams in this pool who have all seen Serbia relatively recently. So expect Serbia to be relevant, but getting out of this pool will require 1 straight week of very good, very consistent volleyball from the Balkans.
All right, Rob, let's break down some of the storylines here in this pool. I think we're both in agreement that France has to be the favorites, but I don't think any match is going to be easy in here. And I think this pool is going to be an absolute battle all the way through that first week.
Yeah, I totally agree. France is the best team on paper for sure. I mean, they just won Olympic gold and they're playing at home and they're hot, like you said. But there's a lot going on here, and the external factors of the Olympics that are going to be so different this time around compared to Tokyo is going to be an interesting effect on France. You brought it up a little bit that there's just going to be a lot of other things going on. Yeah, maybe distractions, but just stuff going on off the court, being that they're playing at home. And this is like the first quote unquote normal Olympics that we've had since 2016. So that'll be different for France, but from a volleyball angle, they are the best team in this pool. I don't, I think there's no question about that, but everybody else can play spoiler. They can beat good teams. Some of them can occasionally lose to bad teams. It's just going to be really interesting. What's your take as a Canadian? What do you think about your team's outlook? Do you like this draw for the Maples?
I absolutely love this draw for us. I think it keeps us away from some of our kryptonite teams, some teams that we don't match up as well against. And it's going to allow us to maybe exact a little bit of revenge from this past 2024 VNL. I think our matchup with Slovenia is really, really good. Slovenia dominated the VNL. They went 11-1 in preliminary play, but they did go 2-5 with the Maple Volleys. And that was at the beginning of the VNL, back when we were kind of working into our groove. So I love this pool in general. I think Serbia, as you said, is one of the most dangerous 4 seeds that we have out there. We know how hot they can get from the baseline, and we know that in an instance like we saw in their preliminary round match against Cuba, which ultimately decided them to be here, they were down 2-0, and as soon they were just able to flip the switch like that, put the pressure on from the baseline and move on. I think there's a lot of different possibilities of outcomes from this pool, and I don't think that anyone's gonna come out clean. I'd love to say that France is gonna go 3-0, and I'd like to think that they are, but I can't rule out the possibility of one of these teams picking up a win against France. I think it's going to be really, really difficult, and all of these teams are going to be battle tested coming out.
Yeah, I agree. Anything's possible here. Serbia's serving, like we talked about, is like dangerous enough on the right day for them to produce an upset that could really turn the tournament upside down. I do think they're the fourth team in this pool, like they're seated properly in terms of ability. I really like both Canada and Slovenia. I can't wait to see them play each other on day one. Interesting thing about that is like, what do we see from Slovenia on day one in their first Olympic match ever? Can Canada maybe take advantage of that, having been to the Olympics before, at least half the team or so, and kind of jump on them a little bit?
And Canada's historically really, really good in the first game of the Olympics.
As you so like to remind me.
2016, a fantastic 3-0 win over the USA. And then even though it wasn't a win in 2021, it was a fantastic 5-setter against Italy where Canada had them on the we had them on the ropes, and we just weren't able to clutch it out. So I think when you're looking at game number one, I think we've got the advantage. We've got guys who have been there before in Schwartz, in Lepke, in Marr, of course, in our captain, Nick Hogue, compared to a team that this is going to be brand new. And I know they're a veteran team. They're a very veteran team. These guys know how to ball, but the first game of the Olympics is a really, really tough one to get through. And I think that's the best time for Canada to be playing them.
I agree. One really big storyline that I'm fascinated by in this pool is the opposite position. I think the play of the opposites on all four of these teams, they're all different. They're all unique in their role and what they're relied upon to do. But I think that the level that the four of them can bring is going to decide a lot. I mean, Everett, I've said it a million times. I think Jean Patry has been robbed a couple times of major tournament MVP awards. I think he was unbelievable in Tokyo, and he was unbelievable this year at the VNL Finals. I think he could have won MVP in either of those tournaments. He's not like as flashy of a player, but super reliable is
so smooth.
So smooth.
So many different shots. You're so right. I think, France relies on him heavily, but their entire team game allows him to kind of meld into their system. Whereas when you're looking at Slovenia and Tonček Stern, he is a guy who is going to take all of the volume.
Right.
They're going to live and die off of his shoulder. Now, it is a little bit older than it used to be, but we saw him come through the VNL and absolutely just rock it as one of the top scorers throughout the preliminary stage. Whereas when you're looking at Canada, Arthur Schwartz, his play can be a little bit up and down. He's known as a guy who can get you a lot of points, maybe sometimes questionable efficiency, or he's a guy who can kind of fade into the background for Canada.
Yeah, I mean, Arthur's also a converted middle. I mean,
he was a middle in Tokyo.
That's exactly right. So he's new to the position. And what's cool about Canada's identity now is an out-of-system offense, as we've seen, Everett, in pretty great detail. They lean on the left side more heavily in out-of-system offense than just about any team in the world. And they rely on the skill and decision-making of Eric Lepke and Stephen Marr to make the right choices to get them in the best positions to score. So Arthur Schwartz is kind of the third scoring option as far as the wings are concerned. And I love that role for him, given the top end physicality that he has. But like, that's completely the opposite role between like a Tonček Stern or even more so a Dražen Luberić of Serbia, who is going to have to carry Serbia's offense, particularly out of system and in transition.
Yeah, and Canada is actually the team with the highest average height in the Olympics, and that is
not including liberos,
not including liberos, but that is one of the reasons that leads them to being what I think is the best out of system team in the world. And I mean, some of this is situational because, as I just discussed before, sometimes the passing's a little suspect, right? So when the passing's
a lot of practice
suspect,
out of system,
you got to get a lot of practice out of system, and that's kind of the bread and butter of the maple volley style of play. But when we look at Serbia and their reliance on Dražen Luberić, he's going to need to have the best tournament of his life. Right, he is going to need to have 3 fantastic games, or at least maybe we can give him one off. But if he doesn't play amazing in at least 2 of the 3 of the games, leading them in scoring, leading them from the baseline with a good efficiency, I don't see Serbia having much of a chance in this pool.
I agree. So last thing we got to do is pick it. How do we think this is going to shake out? You can go first, Everett.
I mean, this one may be a little bit biased, so let's take this one with a grain of salt. I think France is going to take the pool. I think Canada is going to come second. Slovenia will be third, and Serbia will be in fourth.
Okay, mine's similar. I've got France 1 as well. I've got Slovenia 2, Canada 3. And I've got Serbia 4. I do think that Canada, even in third, I think they would be one of those teams that advances. They're definitely good enough to. And again, as a reminder to everybody with the new format this year, the granularity of the tiebreakers is going to be really interesting. Every set is going to be massively important. Every like standings point is going to be huge. I think a target for any team is at least 4 points in the standings to try and make it out. Canada is definitely good enough to do that. I could see. I like Slovenia's potential of stealing sets from France a little more than I like Canada's, but Canada, Slovenia.
We're playing. I think we're playing them in game 2, and I think that's right.
True.
Right, got them in the perfect spot. But Rob, I do think that the two first and second in this pool will be at 2 and 1, and third and fourth will be at 1 and 2.
Oh, interesting. Going to be one of those pools with the crazy tiebreakers. I think France will go 3 and 0. And then I think it'll come down to Slovenia and Canada, with Serbia as a very, very possible spoiler. Going to be a fun pool. I mean, when you have a 4 seeds that's this dangerous, it just
and this good, yeah,
it supports our take that this might be the best Olympic field of all time,
hands down.
All right, that's Pool A. Let's get going with Pool B, another really interesting one.
In Pool B, we have an absolute gauntlet with 3 of the biggest and best teams in men's volleyball. Poland is arguably the best team in the world, definitely the best team on paper, while Italy is the reigning world champions.
And then Brazil is Brazil, as we so like to say, and their Olympic pedigree is quite obvious. And then Egypt, the representative out of Africa, is a little bit scary and potentially primed for an upset. So let's get into it, starting with the arguable number 1 team on the planet in Poland.
Break it down for us, Rob.
Leading off Pool B, we have the number 1 team in the world in Poland, who dominated basically everything there was last summer in 2023, including Olympic qualifiers to get back to the Olympics. They took bronze this VNL at home. We can certainly get into that in a minute, but the overview here, as far as Olympic history is concerned for Poland, being the country that they are and being the closest thing in the field that we have to a true volleyball first country, is that Poland has lost in the quarterfinals of the Olympics each of the last 5 times. That is pretty incredible, that consistency of history, and a piece of consistency that Poland desperately wants to break. Poland on talent alone will obviously get to the quarterfinal this time. They are so good. They are incredibly deep. They have just the most ridiculous core of outside hitters that any other country would be very envious of, led by Wilfredo Leon, who once upon a time, especially in the 2010s, was widely considered the best player on the planet. They're really good everywhere. Bartosz Kurek is a legend at the opposite position, 2-time world champion, as is Poland from 14 and 18. Marcin Janusz is slotted into the starting setter role. They're really good in the middle. Paweł Zatorski is a terrific libero, and they're coached by Nikola Grbic, who has the difficult task of synthesizing all this depth and creating a 12-player roster with defined roles to try and attack this Olympics and get past the quarterfinals. Poland will get to the quarterfinal, like I said. When they do, that quarterfinal match will be the biggest match of every single one of those players' careers. And there are guys in this Polish roster with serious pedigree. They've won world championships, VNL, Champions Leagues, whatever. The Olympic quarterfinal this time, given the unique pressure that Polish volleyball is underneath, again, they're the closest thing to a volleyball first country that we have in this field. There are so many more people in Poland, so much more media in Poland. There's so much more going on, that entities that care about Poland's success in this event, going to be a lot of pressure there, but the ability is 100% there. We expect the starting lineup to include Tomasz Fornal and Wilfredo Leon at the outsides. We'll probably see a lot of Alexander Śliwka and Kamil Semeniuk. Really good team. I love this pool for them to give them a chance to set the tone against great competition like Brazil and Italy early. The ceiling for Poland is obviously Olympic gold. They're the number 1 team in the world for a reason. Can they get it done between the ears? We'll find out probably in the quarterfinal round. That will tell us a lot.
Next up in Pool B, another one of the best teams in the world, Italy. The Italians have been on fire since the last Olympics. They have one of the youngest teams in the world, and they have found themselves in final after final. Now, traditionally, the Italians are one of the most decorated teams in the Olympics, but they have never won a gold medal. They're tied for the most medals with 6 with Brazil and the Soviet Union, but they've never won that illustrious gold. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Now, Their most disappointing result, which is the only time they weren't able to secure a medal at the past 5 Olympics, was that 5th place in Tokyo after losing to Argentina 3-2 in that quarterfinal match. But since then, this team has arguably been the best team in volleyball. They picked up a Eurovolley gold right after that event in 2021, followed that up with a World Championship gold in 2022, and then another silver at the Eurovolleys in 2023. They are the youngest team in the Olympic tournament and one of the youngest teams in the world. And they're led by none other than the young superstar Alessandro Micheletto, who's only 22 years old. He was only 19 when he stepped into their lineup opposite Osmane Wantarena, his idol, back in Tokyo in 2021. But now, with 3 years more experience, he's one of the best young players in volleyball and arguably, in what we think, the best player in volleyball. If Italy manages to capture their first ever gold medal, it will be Micheletto will be the youngest player of all time to capture all the major trophies in volleyball. Now, Italy is one of the best teams in the world by being one of the most consistent and calmest teams to play against. They don't really have very many cracks, and they are going to come at you relentlessly in all levels of the game. Their first contact from the baseline and in serve receive is tremendous. They're highly skilled, so they're able to get points in transition, and they're pretty relentless when it comes to their non-stop attack. Simone Gianelli is one of the best setters in the world, probably top 3, and he is now stepping into the leadership role with Simone Anzani stepping out due to health reasons from this team. Him leaving will leave a little bit of hole down the middle, but the overall in this team, this Italian team is so good. Daniele Lavia on the left side is another one of the top outsides in the world, and Fabio Balasso is super solid at the libero position. Now, if you look at this roster, there is one, not hole, but there is one question mark, and that has to be on the right side. Yuri Romano is their guy and has been their guy since the last Olympics and since Zaitsev has kind of taken his time away from the team, and now they're moving on to a new era. And when Yuri Romano has been really good, it has resulted in gold medals for this team, right? Eurovolley 2021, World Championships 2022. But Romano has the tendency to kind of turn off at times and maybe not bring his best match. But if he's on and he's engaged, and Italy is going to be able to be firing from all 3 of their pin hitters, that makes them a very, very, very dangerous team. I think this team has full-on gold medal potential. And despite being the youngest team in the tournament, I think they have very serious gold medal hopes.
The 3 seed in Pool B is one of the great Olympic volleyball teams of all time in Brazil. Now ranked 7th in the world, but the Olympic pedigree is obvious. 3-time gold medalists, including at home in Rio 8 years ago. 6 and 6 this VNL, got bounced in the quarterfinals by Poland. And Everett and I have talked about this a lot over the last few years, is that this Brazilian team is hanging on to an era of absolute glory. And every time that we think that they're starting to let go of the grip of that era, they still are able to pull out world-class Brazilian-like performances. Brazil is Brazil, as we so often like to say. But at the 2021 Olympics, it was the first time in well over a decade that Brazil failed to medal. They are a staple in the Olympic semifinal round. They get there every single time. This year is going to be challenging. Not only is their pool really, really difficult, and given that they have to play Poland and Italy to make it out of their group, but this team is 3 years older than they were in Tokyo. And while they return a lot of the same players, led, of course, by the legendary Bruno Rezende in his 5th Olympic Games at the setter position, helps that he was able to pull his father out of retirement. Bernardinho is back to coach this team. That 3 additional years of age for Brazil doesn't give me a whole lot of reassurance in their ability to sustain Olympic level for the duration of this tournament. And as of the recording of this video, one of their most important players, Yoandi Leal, suffered some level of an ankle injury in training. We are very much hopeful that he is able to go. As Brazil ran through the World Championship in 2022 all the way to a bronze medal, Leal was by far their most important player and leading scorer. And without him, I think their outside hitter group, their starters being Ricardo Lucarelli and Yoandi Leal, past that, if they have to go to the bench, I think Brazil is likely to struggle tremendously. You have both Souzas as options on the right side, fan favorites Allen and Darlin. Bruno is a legend at the setter position. You have Lucas Satkamp in the middle as one of the oldest players in the field. Thales Haas, a super reliable libero. Brazil is Brazil, like we really like to say. They have to play perfect volleyball throughout this pool and throughout potentially the knockout stage to reach the semifinals again. This will be the most difficult task that this Brazilian team has ever had at the Olympics. And given the health concerns about Yoandi Leal and just how thin they are and how I think fragile the way that they're built is, and the competitors they have in this pool, this will be difficult for Brazil. Everett likes to disagree with me on this, but I've kind of held true to the opinion that I'm not sure that Brazil's going to make it out of this group. The pools being the way they are and the tie-breaking scenarios between potential third place teams, I don't think it favors Brazil. But at the end of the day, Brazil is Brazil. The Olympic pedigree is there. They have by far the most Olympic success in their history of the teams in this pool. Can they lean on that to do it again one more time?
Rounding out Pool B, we have the number 19 team in the world from Africa, Egypt. Now, Egypt qualified for this tournament off the strength of their 2023 Olympic qualifying tournament performance. Not only were they able to defeat their longtime rivals and African counterparts in Tunisia, but they're also managed a big upset against Japan in that Olympic qualifying tournament that kind of rocked the volleyball world at the time. Egypt also has a little bit of experience this year, and they just picked up a bronze medal at the Challenger Cup, just missing out of qualifying for the 2025 World League or Nations League, sorry. But they will still be a very solid team here at this Olympic Games. This is not a team that you can take a match off of and, maybe play your bench. This is a team that you're going to have to show up against. They're going to be led by their big opposite in Reda Heikel, who's one of the few players who has European club experience on this team, and then also the young middle blocker Mohamed Abdeldola, who's only just 22 years of age. He just turned 22 actually at the end of June. But this team could play some spoilers. I think it is a big stretch to imagine this team making it out of pool, but they could potentially steal a match from someone if a team is having an off day and they're having a very, very good one. At the end of the day, this Egyptian team does have a bit of Olympic experience, finishing ninth back in 2016 and representing Egypt at the Olympics a number of times. But this is majoritarily a different team than we saw in 2016. So I do expect to see some nerves along the way, but still, don't ever count out Egypt. Japan learned the hard way back in the fall, and hopefully one of these other teams doesn't as well.
So Pool B, Everett, going to be pretty gnarly, especially when you have teams with medal history and medal aspirations seeded 1, 2, 3. Egypt, really quickly, I mean, you just said it. They can play spoiler, and hopefully all the teams will have learned from what happened to Japan at Olympic qualifiers. But in my opinion, I hope you agree, this is basically a 3-team pool at the top, and Brazil is going to have to work as hard as they can to peak and be the best version of themselves to steal a game from Poland or Italy.
No, the fact that you think this, a team that won a bronze medal at the 2022 World Championships,
yes, they did.
A team that has continued, that dominated this year at certain times as well. This is a very, very, very good team with arguably some of the biggest legends in volleyball, coached by one of the best coaches of all time. How can you sit here and say that this team needs to play perfect volleyball? Yeah, sure. Potentially losing Leone Leal is a big thing, but we're going to monitor that. We're going to see how that goes. That's just as of today, but still Lucarelli, Bruno, Cachopa with the season that he just had for Monza. Like, this is a fantastic team. As you said, Brazil is still Brazil. The fact that you think that they have to play perfect volleyball and that you don't think they're going to make it out is absolutely absurd, especially since they're not going to be given a free game against Egypt, but they have they have a very good chance of winning at least one game. And as you said yourself, you're telling me that they're not going to be able to take Italy or Poland to 5? Like, that is absolutely crazy when you look at this team and what they've able to done. Like, they beat Italy 3-2. At the Olympic qualifying tournament. So they won in 5 just in the fall. Sure, that was at home, but still they were able to get it done. They defeated Poland 3-1 at the VNL this year.
That's true. That was their best win.
Right. And
sure.
Even then, they had an epic 5-setter against Poland in the semifinals of the 2022 World Championship before winning that bronze medal. I don't know how you can sit here and act like Brazil is Serbia and isn't going to qualify. Like, what have you been eating today?
Ricochet shots to Serbia. I think Brazil is fragile. I really don't like how thin they are at the
No.
outside hitter position. I've been saying this even before there were issues potentially with Yoanni Leal's ankle. Without him, they have no chance against Poland and Italy.
No, Al is going to play. He was the
I
same
bet
way,
he
and
will too, and I
he's
hope that he does. Like I
but
across
still
the board in this
Lucarelli and
Olympic game.
Leal, like that is you said it. This is still a fantastic roster. And Adriano and Lucas Bergman, sure, they're not the best first guys to go to on the bench, but they're still all right. Like they can still get the job done. They're not as weak, I'd say, as some of the other teams. Like looking at Italy, for example, right? Botolo and Luca Porro at only 18 years of age. It's not like they're that strong on the left side either. So I think it's absolutely ludicrous that you think that this team has to play perfect volleyball like they're Canada, and that they may not make it out of a pool, which is the only pool, might I add, that has a bit of a gimme game. No offense, Egypt.
It's the closest thing that there is to a gimme game. Yeah, I'm one of the reasons why I say this is because of how much respect I have for Poland and Italy, and because of how
But
good.
have some respect for Brazil too, that they're going to be able to win sets.
Why? We'll see, dude. We'll see. I'm sticking by it. I struggle to see a world where Brazil wins a match against Poland or Italy in this pool. I really like Poland and Italy just matchup wise, roster top to bottom, in the Olympic moment, the stage being what it is. Brazil has the pedigree. Brazil is the only guys on the roster that have Olympic gold medals. Poland and Italy, their time is now. I think this is just
their time is now in the finals, right? I'm not like there's no way for me.
We'll see. We'll see. The way this is setting up, though, is that Poland and Italy are going to play on the very last day of pool play, and what I'm hoping is that is a medal match preview, because it very well could be. And it's crazy that one of those two teams is going to take second in this pool and will therefore be a nightmare matchup for somebody in the quarterfinals.
It probably will be a medal matchup. If you look at the 2022 World Championships, it was Poland against Italy. The 2023 Euro Volley finals was Poland against Italy too. Like arguably, like in my opinion, it probably. Oh shoot, France is up there too. But these are two of the best teams, and you're absolutely going to see the best. But once again, like the fact that you think that Brazil won't be able to hang in this pool is 100% ridiculous. And like I think that's ludicrous.
We'll see. Let's pick it. Poland, Italy, Brazil, Egypt. I think we're both going to have Egypt at 4. But what do you think? How does this pool shake out?
I think we're going to see Poland. I'm going to break this down. I think we're going to see Poland at 1. We're going to see Brazil at 2, and we're going to see Italy at 3. I think all 3 of those teams are going to go 2-1. I think all 3 of those teams are going to obviously beat Egypt, and then all 3 of those teams are going to beat themselves in a triangle. Now, the reason I say this, Rob, is that we do have a little bit of history in volleyball where teams who finished bottom of their pool end up winning the Olympics. France did it in 2021 in Tokyo, right? They just narrowly beat out your United States of America to finish 4th in their pool. They end up winning the Olympics. China on the women's side did the exact same thing in Rio. They finished 4th in their pool and they ended up winning the Olympics. So I don't think finishing last place in your pool necessarily means that you're going to end up, getting knocked out in the first round. But I do think that just especially with, I think Italy is just a little thin down the middle. And I think both of those teams, Poland and Brazil, are going to be able to use that to their advantage. And once again, they're going to beat each other in a triangle. And then it's just going to work out there on plus minus.
Those tiebreakers that could very much come into play. I mean, I could see the 3 teams at 2-1 thing in a lot of these pools. There are so many teams that are good. As far as like the chances for a 3rd place team to win Olympic gold, that's going to be tricky given the format change. I mean, the old format when there were so many more matches in pool play and you could afford a little bit to fall asleep from one. I mean, France, like you mentioned, is a good example. They got crushed by the United States 3-0 in the first match in Tokyo. Then they went on to win Olympic gold. You can't really do that anymore with only 3 matches in pool play. Italy versus Brazil on Saturday, like one of the first matches of the entire tournament, is a huge tone setter. And Poland versus Italy in one of the last matches of pool play is going to decide a lot as well about who's going to take first in the pool in all likelihood and what the bracket matchup seeding is going to be. I'm standing by it. Brazil's going to go 1-2. They're only going to have 3 points and they're going to miss. It's going to be the first time in maybe ever that Brazil's failed to make it out of pools. And when that happens, you all can come back to me on it.
Yeah. Okay there, bud. Okay. I'm sure that's going to happen. Okay.
Yeah. My picks for the record are Poland 1, Italy 2, Brazil 3, Egypt 4.
That's
I like Poland over Italy in a pool play game. I think in a medal match or in a playoff game, it would be a different story.
That's vanilla. I don't like that. I think
we like a little spice in what we do, Everett. I know we do.
I do, clearly, from my picks. You know,
don't you worry, our preview's not over yet.
You like boiled chicken with no gravy.
This is gonna be a fun pool to watch. I think this is gonna be a super fun pool to watch.
This one has so much intrigue, and some of the heaviest hitters. Like, if you like, we could very much have 3 medalists come from this pool, and I would not be surprised in the slightest.
We'll see. Let's move on. Let's hit Pool C and keep this thing moving.
Let's see what you have to say about Pool C. I'm interested now.
But before we move on to Pool C, I want to remind you all to head over to shop.volleyballworld.com if you're interested in picking up one of these. If you want an official Olympic Games Paris 2024 game volleyball, beach or indoor, if you want to pick one up straight from Mikasa, straight from Paris, head over to the website shop.volleyballworld.com. There will be a link in the description. That said, let's move on to Pool C.
I want one, Rob. I want one
too. They're pretty cool.
Yeah. And to round it all out, Rob, we have Pool C, which is what a lot of people are calling the Pool of Death. In the first seed, we have Japan, who have been one of the most exciting teams in volleyball recently. And the second seed, we have a legitimate medal contender. And coming into the summer was probably another one of the medal favorites in the United States of America.
Also, Argentina, who won Olympic bronze last time out in Tokyo, and Germany, who stunned the world at Olympic qualifiers, going 7-0, proving to be very dangerous. This pool is going to be fun. Let's get it started at the top with Japan.
At the top of Pool C, we have one of the most exciting teams in volleyball recently, Japan. The second-ranked team in the world has been slowly climbing the ranks. A bronze at the VNL in 2023, followed up by a silver medal in this year's edition. Japan has to be starting to be a medal favorite. I'm not going to lie. This team is fast. They are skilled. They can also be a little bit physical, and they are deep. The new age of volleyball where speed kills fits in perfectly with the way Japan plays this game, but they've also been developing some of the world's best young players. Yuki Ishikawa is a bona fide superstar. He is hands down one of the best outside hitters in the world. He can do it in system. He can do it out of system. He can do it from the baseline. He can pass. He can really do it all. He can play defense. But alongside him, Ran Takahashi has to be one of the most efficient players in volleyball. You cannot touch him in system, especially the way Masahiro Sakita runs this offense. As we mentioned it, Japan runs it fast, but they're also absolute bullies from the baseline. And I'm sure if you're watching this, you've seen the viral clips of guys like Kento Miyaura, who's been acing Eric Shoji. This is a team who's going to be living and dying off of how tough situations they can put other teams in from the baseline. If they can move other teams off of into out of system situation, set up that solid block defense, and then run maybe what is probably one of the best transition games in volleyball, they have a serious shot of making a run to a medal. But if they're not able to do that, if they're not able to put the pressure on in serve receive, or if the other team is able to handle them a little bit more, that's when their blocking deficiencies start to show up. They have the worst right side block in volleyball, and that really doesn't bode well for an era where the left side attackers for most teams are taking up a lot of volume. Now, it doesn't matter if it's Sakita, Ora, or Nishida on that right side, they're going to have some issues. So if Japan isn't able to keep that serving pressure, they're going to have a hard time. But if they are, and if they're able to pass well for themselves, which, let's be honest, they always are, then they're just able to open up an absolute buffet of offensive weapons. Nishida, Miura, it doesn't matter. Both of the lefties on the right side are going to be able to get the job done in various different ways. And we saw guys like Kai really step up, and I think you have a really solid trio of middles led by Onodira. So this team has to be a medal favorite, but they also have a chance of maybe crashing and burning a little bit, especially given the pool that they're in, given some of their blocking deficiencies. But to me, I wouldn't be surprised if I'd see Japan in a medal situation in just a couple weeks' time.
The 2 seed in Pool C, the land of the free and the home of the brave, my United States of America, now ranked 6th in the world, 3-time Olympic gold medalists, but not since 2008. Haven't medaled in the Olympics since the bronze in 2016. A very disappointing Olympics in Tokyo in 2021 with a lot of the same group of players. As Everett has said, and as kind of the volleyball world has been aware since Tokyo, the United States men have been one of the best teams in the world. A good run at the World Championship in 2022, came up against Poland in Poland. Great at all the Volleyball Nations leagues up until this year. 7-0 at Olympic qualifiers last year. This personnel has been so consistent. I'd say the only other team with close to this level of consistency over the last decade is France. And France paid that off with Olympic gold in 2021. That is certainly the goal for the United States men this time around. We have the best setter in the world in Micah Christensen. We have an all-time great player in Matt Anderson, who is the only opposite on the roster. Interesting choice there to bring one opposite and 4 middle blockers. But Matt Anderson's versatility, as you can see in some of these clips, the fact that he does play outside hitter professionally and can step in and receive is a huge advantage. We're going to use that ability with him standing next to TJ DeFalco to get the best out of both of those players in different rotations. Love the group of middles, love the way that Max Holt and Taylor Averill have been playing, and you have, according to his coach, the best receiver on planet Earth in Eric Shoji. John Speraw, the head coach of this team, has been around for a long time. Even before he took the head coaching spot in the 2016 Olympic cycle, he was on the staff in 2008 when the U.S. men won gold in Beijing. The issues, though, are the form this summer. This was not a good Volleyball Nations League for the U.S. men. They didn't bring the Olympians to week 1, even though they named the Olympic roster by far the earliest of any team in the world. But then once we did start seeing the Olympians, it wasn't quite at that peak level that we were expecting over the last few years that they've really shown in kind of the Micah Christensen era, since he's been the guy since about 2014 or so. Health is a bit of a concern as well, but in pre-tournament scrimmages, I've liked what I've seen from guys like Aaron Russell, Thomas Jeschke, Matt Anderson. Thomas Jeschke's shoulder is something to keep an eye on. TJ DeFalco's ability to score in the clutch is something to keep an eye on. And can this team push late sets over the finish line against good teams after point 20, especially when the pressure's on? This team felt a lot of pressure in Tokyo in 2021, did not make it out of pools. This is probably the last ride with this group of players. The United States men are the oldest team in the field. But I, as an American fan, and a lot of my fellow countrymen are very high on this team's chances to do damage in a very good pool. I love this United States men's team. I think gold medal aspirations are totally fair. I think this could be the year.
Now, in the third spot, we have the 2021 Olympic bronze medalists, Argentina. They're currently ranked 6th in this world. Argentina is a team that, while they maybe didn't have the most fruitful 2024, this is a team that could turn on at any moment and really be dangerous. They picked up their first ever South American championship in the fall of 2023, beating Brazil for the first time ever. And then that led to them with maybe a bit of a disappointing Olympic qualifying tournament where they ultimately weren't able to qualify out of Pool C. But this year in the VNL, they got things going again and managed to secure qualification through the Olympic rankings. Now, this team is majoritarily the same team that we saw in Tokyo, maybe for better or for worse. A few notable players have moved on, but they've been able to bring some guys in. You're still going to see the absolute magician that is Luciano De Cecco run this offense. And to be honest, he's the key to everything. If he is running in his De Cecco mode where everything he does is magic and he's able to find those gaps and run the offense in only a way that Luciano De Cecco can, this team can be very, very dangerous. He's so good in out-of-system situations, but in system, he's going to give his hitters one blocker all day long. And I mean, that's why Bruno Liba was able to lead the scoring in the 2021 Olympics, because he was hitting against one block the entire time. On the left side, they're going a little bit younger with Facundo Conte still being that anchor and Luciano Polonsky opposite to him, but you've still got guys like Luciano Vincentin being able to come off the bench and play an offensive role, and Jan Martinez to come out and off the bench to play a bit of a decent defensive role. Now, this is a team that might have the best double sub in men's volleyball with Matias Sanchez and Pablo Kartsev coming in for that double sub. Matias Sanchez, I think, might be the shortest player in the Olympics, and that's including the liberos, but he is another guy who can run that offense and sling the rock to perfection. And they probably won't want to have him in front row situations, but you're definitely going to see him on that double sub. And rounding out this roster down the middle, you've got arguably one of the best middles in the world in Augustin Lozer, with probably Nicolas Zerber, who's going to fill in opposite him. Lozer is, while maybe not stature-wise one of the most dominating middles, he closes blocks so fast, has active hands, and the routes that he can run with DeCecco gets him one-on-ones or one-on-nuns all over the place, and really takes a lot of mental stress on the opposing team's middle blockers, which just opens up the offense altogether. Argentina is also a really scrappy team. They're not known. They're known to get pretty passionate, and they're known to play with a bit of a chip on their shoulder. And no one demonstrates that any more than their libero, in Santiago Denani. He is a guy that will literally fight you, and if he gets thrown a card, I wouldn't be surprised in the slightest. This is a team that has a lot of pride, and this is a team that plays a very high skilled type of game. They're very, very good in first ball side out. They've got solid passing, and if they're able to get that ball up to DeCecco, then anything can happen. If this team gets hot, they are absolutely dangerous. But I do think that this is a team that maybe stayed the same while other teams around them got better over the past 3 years. Regardless of what happens, I think especially in this pool, Argentina has the ability to finish first, or they have the ability to finish fourth. It all depends on how they show up.
The 4 seed, last but not least in the entire field and in Pool C, is Germany, ranked number 11 in the world. And the story here is what they did at the Olympic qualification tournament in late 2023, when 38-year-old Georg Grozer led this team in 7 matches in 9 days against great competition to a 7-0 record and their berth in the Olympics for the first time since 2012. And now Grozer comes back this year after a summer of largely taking it relaxed. Didn't play a whole lot this VNL. He is the oldest player in the field at age 39. He is the only opposite on the German roster, and he kind of is a throwback to a previous era of volleyball where the men's game was dominated by a scoring opposite with physicality of that caliber. Just not really the way that teams are built anymore. It's kind of an old school feel in the era that Grozer took the world by storm in the late 2000s and the entirety of the 2010s. Can he do that again at age 39, what he just did last year? That's kind of the question that will not only turn this pool on its head potentially, but maybe the entire Olympics tournament hinges on the performance and on the right shoulder of this one 39-year-old man. I can't overstate how important Georg Grozer's level is to Germany and to what happens the rest of this entire tournament. But around him, Germany is solid. Coach Michal Winiarski has done a really good job instituting some structure into this German team. It's not a crazy complex game plan. They need to serve the ball decently well. They need to receive the ball decently well. They need to set up a correct and well-executed block defense system so that they can get the ball into transition and feed it to the old man number 9. If they can do that, they can beat any team in this pool. They can beat any team in this tournament, as you see Grozer right there going bombs away. Their recent history against a lot of the teams in this pool hasn't been super good, with the exception of Japan. I do kind of like Germany's matchup against the Japanese. I'm not sure Japan is built to handle just the raw physicality of Grozer and the size mismatches, especially that Germany has in the middle. Keep an eye out for Johannes Thiele at the setter position. I really like the way that he ran their offense throughout Olympic qualifiers and his ability from the service line. Germany is a difficult team to predict. They have the ability to go undefeated, just like they did in the fall at Olympic qualifiers. But if that one guy, if Grozer right there, if he doesn't have as good of a tournament as Germany hopes that he's having, because the rest of this pool is so good, I could also see Germany going 0-3. Could be anywhere in the middle, very difficult to predict. And it's just so fascinating how important this tournament's going to be for this team based on the oldest player in the field. Watch Georg Grozer and enjoy him while you can.
Now, Rob, I can already foresee some of the comments on this video talking about how you don't think Brazil's going to make it out of a pool with Egypt, But and let me remind you, Brazil not only had better results at the VNL, have had won more medals than United States of America, right? Doesn't matter that you're losing to Poland in Poland. Brazil's still winning medals at the World Championships. The USA isn't, and you have the cojones to sit here and tell me that Brazil isn't going to qualify, but your United States is, after arguably their worst tournament like VNL ever, with the health concerns. Like, hey, I love the rose-colored glasses and the unbridled confidence in your team, but you're going to get absolutely roasted in the comments, and I'm here for it. I'm absolutely here for it. Now, I do believe in the United States. I think that this is a very, very good team, but that takes a lot to say after what you said about Brazil.
Not for me. I love it. I
course.
feel great about the United States. I feel really good about the roster composition and just about the pool and this pool and the matchups that we have. This pool is so fascinating because it has probably the scariest 4 seed in Germany, but also probably the most beatable 1 seed in Japan. I mean, I think that's pretty fair to say. Japan's more beatable than Poland and France.
Yeah.
And Argentina is
less beatable than the US right now.
Argentina is very good, and they won Olympic bronze last time out, but they've kind of been missing that spark. That, I mean, the 2023 VNL, they had it. They had an awesome preliminary round, but then they were real flat at Olympic qualifiers. They were up and down this summer. I mean, we saw them in person in Everett and Ottawa. The U.S. crushed that team 3-0, and then Argentina turned it on. They had the spark, and they kind of smoked Canada a couple days later. Like, there are a lot of roller coasters in this pool in a lot of ways. Japan is a very consistent team, and you know what you're going to get out of them. They're excellent. They're fast. Their attention to detail is high. Sure, they have those blocking deficiencies, but I'd say their floor is extremely high. Everybody else in this pool is a bit of a roller coaster. You're going to catch them on top of a hill or down at the bottom of a drop on a given day, and it's very difficult to predict. I think, in my opinion, across all 6 pools in both Olympics, this is the hardest pool to pick top to bottom.
This is definitely the hardest pool to pick top to bottom. I can see literally any combination of teams finishing in any order.
A very good team is going to finish 4th in this pool and miss out.
There is a very good team that will be missing out here, and I'm worried it might be the United States. I really. Bro, you're going to sit here and say that Brazil's going to miss it once again in a pool with Egypt, and you're going to I am seriously worried that the United States are going to miss out here. This is a very, very good pool, and at least one of these teams is kind of playing at the top of their game, right? But 2 of these other teams kind of have nothing to lose. So I think there's way more pressure on the USA than there is on any other team. I do think they have the ability to handle it, but this is going to be a very, very difficult tournament for the United States of America. They're going to have to play perfect to get out of this pool. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I agree. They're going to have to play perfect to get out of this pool. The Olympics is hard. These teams are good. And, it's the deepest field of all time. Like we've been saying, you're going to have to play real good volleyball. They don't give away Olympic quarterfinal spots. They certainly don't give away Olympic medals for free. We will have to earn it, as will everybody else. But just matchup wise, I really like the way the United States matches up against all 3 of these other teams. I think we're built the best to defend against what Germany does, relying so heavily on Grozer. I like our matchup with Argentina, and I really like the revenge factor after they were the ones that stopped us from making it out of pools at the last Olympics. And we haven't played Japan at full strength on either side in so long that there's not really any recent history to rely on there. But I like our strength there too, especially our left side attack against their kind of invisible right side block.
Yeah, and if you guys are out of system, that won't matter, right? And the US is not a great passing team. That is one of your biggest deficiencies. When you guys have struggled this year, it has been from the baseline. And Japan's arguably the best serving team in volleyball, right? If you guys are out of system, it doesn't really matter about that height difference, and that where I think is going to be the biggest potential breakdown for the United States against Japan.
Well, let's put it on the record. Let's pick the hardest pool that there is to pick. I know where I'm going with this.
Oh, of course you. How about you go first?
United States 1, Japan 2, Argentina 3, Germany 4. Again, hard pool to pick. This could be one where you have those crazy tiebreakers where like 2-2-1 teams, 2-1-2 teams. I don't know if I see it from Germany. I think that lightning in a bottle is going to be really hard to recapture like they did last year. And then Argentina, I just don't know about the spark and just the fact that there's such a first ball side out team. I don't know where their break points are going to come from against the other three teams in this pool. And with Japan just being so good, but I do like the way the US matches up against Japan. And I think this is our year. I'm putting it on the record.
All right. Sounds good. I mean, hey, it will be one of the biggest turnarounds of all
Be a
time.
huge
It
turnaround.
would be a massive turnaround. And I will remind you that back in 2008, when the U.S. did win the Olympics, they also won the World League that year too, right? So
True.
they came in hot. For me, I think traditionally Japan is always good in pool play. They're always good in a preliminary round. They always start a tournament really, really well. The added bonus is that now they're actually starting to finish it on the back end. They're actually starting to win quarterfinals and make semifinals and get into those medal spots. So, yeah, I think that this is a team that's ready to go, and I think they're going to win the pool. I think the United States is going to get second, and I think Argentina is going to get third, with Germany rounding out the pool. I do think though that once again you're going to have like kind of a 2-1, 2-1, 1-2, 1-2. No one's going to get out unscathed,
Probably
right?
not.
I think it's going to be so hard for me to see one of these teams come out a perfect 3-0. However, I do think that the three teams coming out of this pool are going to be battle tested, and they're going to be ready to go, right? I think all teams in the tournament will be, but especially these teams, they're going to be able to use that experience from pool play and galvanize themselves moving forward through the playoffs. And I mean, the reality is, Rob, is that it goes right into a quarterfinal, right? We're going to rank the teams from 1 to 8, depending on their results, and we're going to match up. So whereas in the past, you might not see another team right away, like you're going to see potentially another team from your pool right away in the semifinals.
That is possible, yeah.
So yeah, I think that this pool is going to produce one of the medalists at the end, but I am seriously worried about the USA in this. I won't lie. Once
Fair
again, like
enough.
we've gotten to know the guys, and they're great guys and a great team, but I am very, very worried. I think you've got a Japan team who is playing their best volleyball of their lives right now. I think there's a German team who thinks they have an ace in their pocket in Grosjean, and an Argentinian team who has that past experience to pull on with one of the best setters in the world. And I just think it is a lethal combination for the United States and for all of the teams here.
Pay a special attention to this pool on day one of the Olympic tournament. It's going to tell you a lot about how these teams look now in an Olympic context, because other than Japan, I think the teams in this pool are a little bit unpredictable as for their form right now. Japan versus Germany and USA versus Argentina on day one is going to tell us a lot.
Yep. Absolutely, without a doubt. That'll set the tone for the pool. And it is the one pool that has 2 matches on the same day to start the pool, and then 2 matches on the same day to end the pool. So we're going to start with spice, and then we're going to end with spice. And
this is a spicy one.
Definitely won't be bland.
All right. Only one thing left to do, Everett. We're going to wrap this whole thing up in just a moment, including our medal picks. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. That is everything you need to know about the 2024 Paris Olympic Men's Indoor Volleyball Tournament. Every team, every pool, Everett and I's opinions. And there's only really a couple things left to do. One is to remind you all just of like the gravity of this whole thing, of how major this event is, how everything in the world of volleyball is geared around this Olympic Games and 1 2-week cycle of volleyball every 4 years. And just how awesome it's going to be to watch. These teams are so good. They've worked so hard to be peaking at this time, and they're going to put on the best show you can imagine. I just cannot wait to follow along with it. I'm so ready to go.
Yeah, 2 weeks of literally the best volleyball in the world. During the group stage, we're going to have 4 matches a day. That's going to happen throughout the quarterfinals too, and it's going to come fast and furious. So you're not going to want to miss any of it. So make sure you find out with your local listings, wherever you're from, who the local host broadcaster is, and find out how to watch more volleyball throughout this tournament. Rob, is it now time for us to pick it? Do we want to give the people our medal picks?
Yes, I think we should. This is our first time putting our medal picks on the record. We've done a lot of pool previews. We've done a lot of coverage leading up to the Olympics. So this is our first time putting our Olympic medalists on the record, and I'm ready.
Yeah, I'll go first.
Please do.
Because you've already shared yours with me off air, and I haven't. I have two. I have two picks. I do, in my heart, Canada is going to win a quarterfinal, and they're going to make it into a bronze medal match, and they're going to have an outstanding match in the bronze medal and come home with our country's first ever medal at indoor volleyball. In reality, though, I do think that, as I said before, I think Pool B is going to be a gauntlet, and I think all three teams coming out of Pool B are going to end up being our medalists. I think that Italy is going to win their first ever Olympic gold medal. Micheletto will become one of the best players of all time already at just 22 years old.
The unicorn.
I think they are going to defeat Poland in a 5-setter in the finals. And I think Brazil is going to take down Japan in the bronze medal match.
Wow. So that excludes France. That excludes the United States. That excludes Argentina.
I don't think the United States is getting out of pool.
Well, I don't think Brazil's getting out of their pool, so we can plant our flags on those respective takes. That's the thing about the Olympics. Everybody is so good that there will be very good teams that don't make it out of their pool. There will be 4 very good teams that lose in the quarterfinals. Like, not only do you have to be really good, you've also got to catch fire. You've got to be playing your best possible volleyball at the right time if you want to come home with an Olympic medal. That's just the way it is. And with this year being kind of the first Olympics, quote unquote, back to normal, we're going to have all the fanfare, all the media, all the fans in the stands that we just like crave in Olympic events.
Distraction and pressure for sure.
Yeah, and the distractions and the pressure that comes with all that, and the way that teams experience those distractions and pressure at the Olympic Games is just different. It's just different than every other event. And are
you going to give us your picks? Are your picks or what?
I am.
Just get cut to the chase here.
United States 1, Italy 2, France 3.
Okay.
That's it. I think
Poland at all.
I think that the Poland curse continues. I think that they get to the quarterfinal and lose again.
Who?
I think that
to who?
To whom? Ooh, great question. I think Japan might steal one from them. I think that Japan will take 4th. I think that Japan will win a quarterfinal game, but I don't think they're going to be able to beat a superior team in a medal round. I think France beats Japan at home for 4th or for bronze. Yeah, I think the Poland curse continues. That the pressure that those players are going to feel in the quarterfinal round, I think is going to be just too crushing. And I think this is the year for my United States. From heartbreak to the top of the world, terrible in Tokyo, in tremendous heartbreak there, and we're going to stand on top of the podium. We're going to make the world listen to the Star Spangled Banner.
All right. I mean, I think that my Canada pick for bronze is a little less ridiculous than that, but to each their own. To each their own. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Regardless, this is going to be a fantastic 2 weeks of volleyball. This is going to be, like Rob said, the best tournament ever in the history of Olympic indoor men's volleyball. And if you want to follow it, make sure to subscribe right here on Volleyball World. We'll be coming back with you all tournament long with more updates and recaps and plenty of stuff. So make sure you follow here on Volleyball World.
Yep, we will be very busy. We'll be active, Everett and I, throughout the Olympics in all sorts of different places. Reminder to check out shop.volleyballworld.com if you want an official game ball.
Get yourself some gear.
They're real sweet. You should definitely get yourself some gear and all the other stuff that's available over there on the store.
The best way for you guys to make the 2028 Olympics is to volley the ball against the wall. So go to the store, grab yourself one of those beautiful new Mikases, and just pass to yourself while you watch Canada go get a bronze medal.
I love it. Thanks everyone for watching.
Thanks guys, and enjoy the Olympics.